The anime begins by telling us something that's often said, that objects treated with care are inhabited by a spirit, which raises the question of what might dwell in things that are thrown away as trash. Now we see a girl feeling a bit sad because her stuffed animal has broken, and when her mother notices, she tells her that she'll buy her a new one, and that it's better to just throw the old one away. Once she puts it in the trash bags, these are taken to an underground depot, which is connected by ducts to garbage trucks. This is closely observed by someone who follows its trail all the way to the building that serves as the city's garbage dump. That person is our protagonist Ludo, who ends up sneaking into the building to reach the depot where the recently discarded trash is kept. One of the guards discovers him after hearing the noise he makes, so he opens the door and points his weapon at him. Taking a look, he immediately assumes it's the garbage criminal, the person who steals it to threaten the city's beauty. Ludo just turns to look at him without saying a word, and without waiting for his response, the guard presses the emergency button to call for backup right away. This is when Ludo throws some garbage bags at them to distract them, and one of them is completely disgusted when his uniform gets stained. Ludo takes advantage of this distraction to escape through the duct connected to that room, and once outside, he uses his speed to dodge the bullets fired in his direction. Even though he gives it his all to escape, one of the bullets grazes his arm, but that doesn't stop him from jumping over the wall up ahead to get out of their sight. After that, the guards keep searching for his trail without any success, so Ludo simply climbs up to the surface and leaves just like that. As a result of this incident, some women in the city start talking about the matter. What they do is complain that this criminal is taking the trash, and they bet that he's someone from the tribes. They fall silent for a moment when they realize that one of them is nearby, feeling a deep disgust for the society reflected by the people in that place. And that man is named Leguto, who closes the notebook he is writing in and heads toward the door that connects the city to the tribe. Both sides are separated by a giant wall, making the difference between the city and the tribe very clear. Some men from the tribe find out that the trash criminal has struck again and drawn attention, and since they know it's Ludo, they complain that he just won't give up on that. Suddenly, Ludo is greeted by Shua, a friend of his, who scolds him for stealing trash again, since the people from the city are very strict about waste management. Ludo tells her that the rich throw away things that can still be used, and if he's able to fix something, it helps him with expenses. Seconds later, the other kids arrive to complain about Ludo's presence and advise Shua not to get close to that guy. She asks what's so bad about him, since everyone here is the same, but the boy warns her that she'd better not hang out with him because he's the son of a murderer, and according to what people say, this neighborhood was created to lock up criminals, and they are their descendants. That's why they work hard, aiming to earn an honest living and clear that bad reputation. But all their efforts were in vain because Ludo's father killed many people, and if she's with him, people will think they're the same. At that moment, his words are cut short when he feels Ludo's sharp and terrifying gaze, so he hides his fear and leaves with his friends while still mocking him. Once they're alone again, Shua tells Ludo that he is different from his father and that she trusts that's true, which he appreciates, albeit a bit embarrassed. Shua suddenly gets excited when she sees the stuffed animal he has repaired, and Ludo tries to tell her that it's a gift for her, but unable to speak properly, Shua's mother arrives to take her away. This causes Ludo to fail in his attempt to give her the stuffed animal, and you can hear Shua's mother reminding her that she shouldn't spend time with him. After that, Ludo returns home, where he is greeted by Leguto, who mockingly repeats the words he said to Shua, making it clear that he was listening to them. Ludo complains about it, but now Leguto demands an explanation from him about the incident that happened in the city. Without waiting for an answer, he reminds him that he doesn't have to earn money if it means risking his life, and that he can leave the expenses to him until he grows up. He also adds that even though they're not related by blood, they're still family. That's why he doesn't want him to try to pay him back, since things don't work that way. After hearing this, Ludo reminds him that he took him in when he was abandoned as a baby and has raised him his whole life, so he's not trying to pay him back, but rather believes that even within a family, things should be appreciated. Leguto is surprised to hear this and advises him to be just as honest with Shua so she knows how he feels, which makes Ludo angry. Leaving that topic aside, Leguto notices that he was injured, so he asks him to take off his gloves and bandages so he can treat the wound. While doing so, he asks him not to go back to the garbage dump, since next time things could be much worse. Ludo tells him that this wound isn't a big deal, not when compared to the wound his parents left him. Even so, Leguto tells him that here, anyone who commits a serious crime is sentenced to death and thrown into the abyss, and that his father was thrown into that place. That's why he wants him to take care of himself and the things that matter. This even though they live in such a rotten world. Here they explain to us that Ludo's hands have been this black for as long as he can remember. Sometimes he was overwhelmed by a sharp pain. That, and the looks of disgust from people who saw his unpleasant wounds, really affected him mentally when he was a child. It was then that Leguto gave him those gloves, and even though they were already worn out, they immediately eased his pain. And all of this leads him to believe that he will never be able to repay him for practically saving his life. Suddenly, Leguto tells him that he has to win Shiwa over before someone else takes her, since she's very pretty, something Ludo immediately rejects, embarrassed. While they're talking about certain things, you can see a hooded man listening to them from outside. The next day, Leguto notices that Ludo isn't able to make a normal smile, so he advises him to at least try imitating someone else to make a good impression. But Ludo complains about his advice, thinking it's useless to try something like that when he has such a frightening look. Outside, holding the stuffed animal in his hand, he wonders if Shua will be home at this hour. As he walks through the streets, we're told that the abyss is a huge garbage dump, meaning that everything that's thrown away ends up there, and the fate of people who commit crimes is also the abyss. Here we see a large number of people carrying out a sentence on a criminal, and when they give the signal, they release the ropes holding him so that he falls into the great abyss. Ludo takes a look at what's happening and wonders what happens to the people who are thrown into that place. Suddenly, he is surprised by Shua, and because of her unexpected arrival, he nervously hides the stuffed toy. Without paying much attention to him, she tells him that there's nothing pleasant to see from here, and that they built the neighborhood on the outskirts of the city to make it clear to everyone that they'll be thrown into the abyss if they commit any misdeeds. Keeping this in mind, she thinks it's something horrible, because whether they like it or not, they'll end up witnessing some execution, and she wouldn't want to see him being thrown in. She's aware that a lot of the trash they throw away is still useful, but she doesn't think it's right for him to risk himself for that and end up getting caught. Ludo mentions that this is the same advice Leguto gave him, and upon hearing that, Chiwa confirms it's because he also cares about him a lot and because he matters to him. At this, Ludo laughs at the idea that someone like Leguto would care about him, but as he repeats those words, he realizes that she also said too. As soon as Chiwa realizes this, she can't help but blush, so she tries to clarify that she didn't mean it that way. Seeing her act like that, Ludo can't help but fall backwards in shock, which ends up revealing the stuffed animal. The moment she realizes what she's holding in her hands, Ludo musters all his strength to tell her that when he found it, he thought she would like it. He admits it's possible she might not like something someone else threw away, but even so, he believed the stuffed animal would be happier with her than in the trash. After handing the stuffed animal to her so she can take it, Chiwa accepts it and tells him that she's happy and that she'll take care of it forever. Ludo is unable to keep a straight face after seeing her so happy, and when she walks away, he ends up running with all his might, thrilled at having succeeded in giving her that gift. When he comes to his senses, he gets the idea to tell Leguto what happened to see his reaction, so he heads home right away. As he turns a corner, he suddenly bumps into the disciples, the city guards. They ignore this mishap and continue on their way, while the neighborhood residents start to wonder what they're doing in this area. Instead, Ludo ignores all that and focuses on going to see Leguto. But as soon as he opens the door, instead of seeing Leguto's familiar face, he finds a hooded figure and a huge sword buried in Leguto's body. The figure grabs the weapon to press it deeper into the wound, and as Ludo recovers from the shock, he rushes straight at him to stop him. Suddenly he comes to after the beating he takes from him, unable to stand up to try to stop him. The figure picks up a book from the floor and looks at it before leaving, and once he forgets about him, Ludo focuses on Leguto. With the little strength he has left, he begs him to run away quickly, but since Ludo refuses to leave his side, not wanting to abandon him, he grabs him tightly and pleads with him to please change this disgusting world. As he draws his last breath, Ludo is hit by a stun shot from the disciples, who accuse him of murder. Ludo tries to defend himself while still in shock from the situation and the paralyzing attack, but they ignore everything he says and continue to see him as a murderer. And in response to his insistence on proving his innocence, one of them ends up punching him to knock him out. As a result of this horrible incident, people in the area start spreading the rumor that Ludo has killed someone. And when Chiwa hears all of this, she keeps the stuffed animal with her, refusing to believe that it's true. Now we see the man who acts as the judge at public executions, who tells everyone present that Ludo has committed a very serious crime in this beautiful and sacred land, that not only is he content with scavenging through the trash to defile the city, but he has finally committed the vilest act of all. And even though the victim was a member of the tribe, they cannot allow a murderer to remain a second longer on the sacred land. As this announcement is made, Ludo is slowly placed at the execution site, suspended in the air while ropes hold his arms. In addition to that, several city agents remain watching the trial to prevent any inconvenient events, although the members of the tribe stay silent as they watch Ludo with contempt. Finally, without further ado, the judge sentences him to death, and many of those present celebrate this final decision, using the phrase, "filth to the abyss." Ludo, being conscious at that point, can only wonder in his mind what on earth is happening, since he doesn't understand how things turned out this way, especially because he wasn't guilty of anything. Little by little, the structure to which he is tied is brought to the edge overlooking the abyss, and as this happens, Ludo pleads from within for someone to listen to him. As he glances at all the people surrounding him, there is someone in particular who catches his attention, and that person turns out to be Chiwa. Barely able to recognize her, he uses all the strength in his voice to shout to her that Leguto was murdered and that she must please find the culprit. But the words that come from Chiwa leave a silence in the air as she replies that he did this even though she believed in him and that he will never stop being the son of a murderer. After that, she looks away in disappointment, turns around to leave, but not before letting go of the stuffed animal. It is at this moment that Ludo lets out a slight laugh and tells those present that they are the filthy ones and that they are trash without a will of their own. And even though they have eyes and ears, they are nothing but puppets who refuse to see and listen. Just as he is about to make a statement to them, he falls silent when he realizes that the guy who killed Leguto is in the audience. Moments later, the signal is given to release him, and that's exactly what happens. As he descends into the abyss, he finishes the statement he was about to make. He intends to drag them all down to hell, wishing to annihilate each and every one of them. Once he is swallowed by the abyss, he has a blurry vision of everything around him, but once that small light goes out, he later wakes up on top of a pile of garbage. Barely fully awake, the first thing he does is cover his nose and wonder what that horrible smell is. After that, he stares at the enormous landscape in front of him, which is actually a true giant of garbage, the abyss itself. The landscape is so vast that he wonders where he is, and as he recalls, he remembers that he was thrown into the abyss. From what he understands, it was rumored to be a huge garbage dump. The garbage, the humans, all the filth converges in the abyss, which is hell itself. It is at this moment that a violent tremor occurs, and when he looks behind him, he sees a colossal monster baring its fangs while letting out a bone-chilling screech, something that leaves him stunned with shock. In a scene change, we get a glimpse of Ludo's thoughts. He always found it strange that, even though everyone is so interested in filth and criminals, no one seems to care or even think about what happens when you fall into the abyss. Back in the present moment, Ludo starts running for his life from these giant monsters that quickly come after him. At the moment he is surrounded, he wonders what these things are since they look like living masses of garbage. He quickly dodges the bite of one of them, and as he keeps running desperately, he falls to the ground only to find a human skull right in front of him. This makes him wonder how they even dared to throw him into this place. And because of the noise he makes when he screams, the ground beneath him collapses and he falls to a lower area, out of sight of the monsters. That's when he realizes that the air in this place will ruin his lungs if he keeps breathing it. So he decides he needs to find shelter, and fast, in some safe spot. But as soon as he sees the landscape around him, he starts to doubt whether a safe area could even exist in this hell. Suddenly, he starts coughing up blood as the toxicity of the air affects him, and that draws the attention of the monsters behind him. When they get close to him again, he wonders if, once more, everything will end without him being able to do anything. Right after that, he says Leguto's name, and that makes the image of his lifeless body come to his mind. That keeps him from giving up and makes him realize that there's still one thing left for him to do. Then he grabs a metal rod and declares that those who despised him, those who falsely accused him, and those who threw him into the abyss are all going to pay. But before anyone else, the first one who will pay is the guy who killed Leguto. He will hunt him down, find him, and then annihilate him. After this, one of the beasts lunges at him to devour him, but Ludo simply knocks it aside with a powerful blow from the metal rod in his hands. Here he also thinks that he will make death itself wait to claim his life until he has accomplished his goal. On the other hand, we see that an unknown person with an umbrella is not too far from this place and turns their attention to what's happening when a can falls on them. For his part, Ludo begins his fight against these monsters, and while he lands some solid blows on one of them, we can see that he continues to bleed out as he remains poisoned. At this point, he throws his weapon at one of the beasts, and while it's in the air, he is violently struck by one of them, which sends him flying several meters away. Without having time to rest, Ludo now grabs a traffic light and throws it like a spinning blade at the limbs of one of them, only to be surprised by another one that attacks him from the ground. As he moves away, he once again struggles to breathe due to the polluted air in this horrible place. And while he endures this, we see a small spark come out of his body, something he doesn't notice. At that moment, he is attacked from two different directions, but at the moment of impact, he grabs a sheet of roofing and uses it as a blade to cut one of them in half, and after a few seconds, it explodes without leaving a trace. After defeating these enemies, he falls to his knees, not paying attention to another one that is approaching. This one turns out to be much larger than the previous ones, and as it closes the distance, it slowly rises up on two legs, revealing its enormous size. Ludo stares at it and without hesitation starts running away in the opposite direction as fast as he can. Seconds later, the giant made of trash crashes to the ground, creating a shockwave that pushes all the garbage around it aside, and even reaches Ludo, sending him flying. The moment he opens his eyes, the first thing he sees is an unknown man with an umbrella right next to him, while he is still weak from having his lungs contaminated. This guy grabs him by the clothes to lift him up and then gives him a good kick in the back. While he's still processing the pain from that blow, the man grabs him again and puts an oxygen mask on him, which takes him by surprise, since now he can breathe normally. Thanks to that, the first thing he does is ask him what this place is and what those monsters are. In response to his questions, the man with the umbrella signals him to be quiet and tells him in a very low voice. Ignoring him, Ludo raises his voice, wanting to know what this world is, and once again the man repeats the same thing. After a couple of tries, Ludo tells him he can't hear him well and wants him to speak damn louder. In reaction to that and his attitude, the man yells at him angrily that they are not underground, but on the surface, and that the ones above, the ones from the sphere, dumped all this trash. On top of that, he tells him that he's already told him many times to be quiet, and now it's his fault that they've been found by these monsters. These are trash beasts, monsters born from waste, so it's useless to destroy them over and over again with regular weapons. They also react to the sound of the human voice, which is why he was speaking quietly. But now everything is ruined because of him, and since the beasts here are special, he wanted to avoid making a commotion. When one of the beasts is already behind him, a bright aura suddenly envelops his umbrella, causing it to change appearance. The guy mentions that, although it's not the best survival tactic, he feels better after shouting a little. And right after that, he points his umbrella at the monster and spins it at high speed, causing the creature to be torn to pieces when it tries to attack him. Ludo watches as that monster does not come back to life since its pieces slowly disintegrate. Despite that, the guy notices how a huge number of beasts are present to attack them, and just as they're about to charge at him, he doesn't hesitate to strike first. He quickly destroys them one by one with simple attacks, and upon witnessing this, Ludo wonders if his technology is something special in the abyss, or if he possesses a unique power. He also thinks that if he had a power like that, he could take revenge on those above. One of the beasts charges up a long-range attack, but the guy simply spins his umbrella to neutralize that mass of acid, and when the liquid is split into parts and falls to the ground, it instantly causes huge explosions. After that, the man lunges at the monster, lifts himself into the air, and holds his umbrella with his body. He barely points the tip at the beast before enveloping it in power to perform a special attack, which sends him crashing into its head like a projectile. The impact generates a shockwave around them, and the force of the blow explodes not only the beast, but also the ground itself, allowing him to defeat it in an instant. Once he's finished with that, he returns to Ludo and tells him it's good that he's still alive, while Ludo asks who he is. In response to his question, the man removes his helmet to introduce himself as Engine, and when he takes off his oxygen mask, he adds that he is a simple and humble cleaner. He immediately starts writhing from the stench in the air and quickly puts the mask back on, complaining that he was forced to do that. Ludo remains silent, as suddenly he collapses to the ground, unconscious from exhaustion. Here we return to Ludo's past, where Leguto, seeing him arrive dirty, asks what happened. Ludo replies that he was pushed because he told the usual kids that things have life, but they laughed at him and beat him up. Leguto asks if he got back at them, and when Ludo says he didn't, Leguto congratulates him for not doing so. After that, Ludo reminds him that some time ago he told him that the spirit would inhabit the things he used for a long time. And upon hearing that, Leguto assumes that because of this, Ludo interpreted that things have life. He then clarifies that this isn't the case, it's just an old saying meant to encourage people to take good care of things. Although in reality, he does believe it's true. While cleaning him up, he points out the possibility that this towel might get him clean thanks to the spirit that inhabits it. Ludo asks him if the things around them also have spirits, and Leguto replies that it's possible they do. And when Ludo turns his attention to his gloves, he tells him that maybe one day a spirit will inhabit them if he takes good care of them. This is when Ludo slowly wakes up, and the first thing he notices is that he's completely chained up. Enshin greets him calmly, but Ludo starts insulting him, wanting to know why he's being carried like that and what Enshin intends to do with him. After hearing him out, Enshin explains that he's been carrying him gently because he passed out, but Ludo demands to be released, saying he needs to get back up immediately. Enshin informs him that unfortunately that's not going to be possible and that here they call the upper world the sphere. Then he asks him how he plans to fly all the way up there, making it clear that it's an enormous height he would have to cover. He also tells him that the sphere is always moving, and although there are several other reasons, what he's trying to say is that it's simply not possible right now. So, if that's clear, he wants him to keep quiet, or else they'll get eaten. Despite this, Ludo swears that he will return no matter what he says, and based on what was said about it not being possible right now, he assumes that he must know some way to get to the sphere. Because of that, he asks him to tell him everything he knows about this world as well as about the monsters from before and the power he has used, since he wants to use all of that to defeat that guy and the people in the sphere. Suddenly, Enshin takes off his helmet and tells him that if he insists so much, he agrees to give him a lesson about what kind of place this is. As he keeps dragging him along a path, they arrive at a place that doesn't have as much trash. There, Enshin tells him that everything is now in his hands, then turns around and leaves him behind. Ignoring Ludo's complaints, who after a few seconds realizes that there are more people in this place. They are surprised by his presence, and one of them in particular judges that, based on his clothes, he must be a resident of the sphere. However, not wanting to jump to conclusions, he calmly asks where he comes from. A bit nervous, Ludo replies that he fell from the sphere, which makes all of them suddenly remove their masks, showing great excitement at meeting someone from up there. Ludo asks them who they are, while they are surprised that they speak the same language. When they realize he is scared, the leader explains that usually only bodies that fall from the sphere are found. He also thinks it's a horrible and cruel way to tie him up, so he agrees to untie him. While he's doing that, Ludo starts to believe that he's a more reasonable man than Enshin, but without realizing it, they tie him up inside one of the vehicles since they were afraid he would escape. Because they seal Ludo's mouth, he has no choice but to struggle. Instead, the leader tells him that the bodies of the spherines sell for a lot since there are many people who want them, starting with the whole corpse, but also the eyes, arms, legs, and clothing. After that, he explains that they are so valuable because everyone hates them. This is because people keep throwing garbage down at them from above, and the accumulation of that waste is what creates a toxic atmosphere, which also gave rise to those monsters. Many died at the hands of those beasts and others were crushed by the garbage, while others were left homeless because of the pollution. Taking all that into account, it's no wonder those people plan to torture him or do even worse things to him in public, and after selling him, they have to witness his fate. But since it's not in their interest for him to die of hunger, they start force-feeding him, and of course, the food turns out to be disgusting. Because of his reaction, the leader assumes that he considers Terra's food to be garbage and figures that the delicate ones from the sphere hate touching this kind of stuff. The next time he tries to feed him, Ludo violently bites two of his fingers, making him recoil in pain as his flesh is torn off. Meanwhile, Ludo starts chewing on that flesh and even eats more than what they had given him. He tells them that it's not garbage, since it can still be eaten without any problem. On top of that, he criticizes how people talk about the sphere, about Terra, about garbage, about the tribes, about how some are above and others below. As a mysterious power emerges from his hands and envelops the chains, Ludo advises them not to divide everything according to their own convenience. After breaking the chains with a strong pull, he swears to them that he will no longer hold back, so he can unleash that power onto the ground. Enshin observes this from afar and notices that he possesses a great amount of energy, which confirms the suspicions he had about him. Here, the words that Leguto once told Ludo in the past are repeated, that surely one day a spirit will inhabit those gloves if he takes good care of them, and that without a doubt they will help him. Ludo grabs the chains in front of him and imbues them with power, causing the others to be surprised that there is someone like him in the sphere as well. Enshin fully confirms that he is someone with the ability to give life to objects in order to extract their power, and such people are called givers. When the bandits try to attack him, one of them warns the others that they should go after the chain, since givers cannot use their power if they don't have their object. But when they manage to take it away from him, Ludo grabs a tire from the ground to turn it into a weapon, and this surprises both the leader and Enshin, since he is able to use more than one object. Once Ludo beats everyone up, he slowly approaches the leader of the bandits who, despite being afraid, insults him for being a filthy Spherian. Just before Ludo tries to attack him, Enshin appears just in time to stop him and ask him to calm down. This brings Ludo back to his senses as well as his eyes, so now the objects that were suspended in the air simply fall to the ground. The bandit falls unconscious from the shock while Ludo tries to process what just happened. At the same time, the tire next to him turns to ashes. That's when he realizes that when he remembered Leguto's words, his gloves began to emit that power. Enshin notices that he is starting to bleed from his nose, so he tells him that his body can't withstand so much power, and then apologizes, since he was testing him to confirm that he possesses that power. In addition to that, he agrees to teach him everything about this world and about that power, but in exchange he wants him to join the cleaners since they need him with them. Ludo is a bit shocked by the proposal, but without thinking too much, he tells him that he doesn't want to. In another scene, we see a man on the roof of an abandoned building who is surprised to receive a call from Engine, so he asks what's going on. After hearing what Engine says, he is amazed that Engine has found a diamond in the rough. Engine tells him that he found the guy by chance in the Forbidden Zone, and it turns out he has a very peculiar ability. In fact, from what he saw, it's something extraordinary, which is why he has recruited him as a cleaner and will bring him later so he can meet him. Now we see Ludo on a stretcher being treated by a doctor, and after listening to Engine, he reminds him that he never said he would join them. Engine asks him if he really thinks he can afford to choose, to which Ludo clarifies that he needs to get back up as soon as possible. Suddenly, he is interrupted by the doctor, who exclaims that he was lucky to survive the Forbidden Zone because if he had breathed in more air there, he would already be dead. And to top it off, after that he was kidnapped, so he has really bad luck and should thank the cleaner for saving his life. Ludo gets angry for being scolded, but at that moment the doctor informs them that the treatment is over and kicks them out of the place, shouting. Once outside, Ludo thinks about it for a moment and decides to thank Engine for having paid for his treatment, but he makes it clear that all he's looking for is information, so he doesn't have time to be a cleaner. Engine then reminds him that the guys who were going to take him away treat the Spherinos like trash. He can go around asking whoever he wants, but if they find out who he is, it'll be the end for him. Ludo keeps thinking about it, and Engine clarifies that what he's trying to say is that people in this world aren't so kind as to give out information for free. After that, Engine takes him to get something to eat and is surprised by how much Ludo eats, although that was to be expected considering how much he threw up after eating that garbage. At that moment, Ludo looks around, noticing the city and the people going about their business as usual. He finds it rather surprising since he thought the abyss was just huge mountains of garbage, but he was really mistaken. Now that he has the chance, Engine asks him what his name is, so Ludo finally introduces himself without stopping eating for a second. Engine compliments his name and then says that it's time for his first lessons about Terra. He explains that in Terra, emotions or anima accumulate among the trash and, once they reach a certain point, they turn into energy that can cause various phenomena. One of these phenomena is the origin of the trash beasts, which attack humans as soon as they see them. Generally, they inhabit the trash areas outside the cities, although on some occasions they have even attacked the cities themselves. Ludo asks if, in that case, it wouldn't be better to build walls, but Engine tells him he's thinking like a child, since people can't live locked up forever. Ludo agrees when he hears this, and Engine reminds him that normal weapons don't work against those beasts because their core is made of anima, but he could defeat them with those gloves. It's the same as a knife that a chef has lovingly sharpened, or the pen that has accompanied a writer for years. If a person uses something for a long time and cherishes it enough, anima begins to inhabit it, and those objects are called vital instruments. A beast with an anima core can only be defeated with a vital instrument. However, there are few people who can draw out the power of vital instruments. Ludo asks if he's implying that he is one of those people who can do it, and Engine confirms it, saying that both of them have that kind of power, which makes them givers. Upon hearing that, Ludo starts to process this information in silence, thinking that apparently what Leguto said is true. Engine tells him that the cleaners are an organization that exterminates beasts, and therefore they recruit givers. Ludo realizes that's why he was invited to join and asks if Engine will help him find out how he can get back up if he joins them. This question catches him off guard, and that's when Engine admits that in truth he has absolutely no idea how to do that. Ludo is very surprised to hear this and quickly gets upset, asking why Engine acted as if he knew then. But Engine clarifies that he never actually said he knew. Even so, he thinks he knows who could help with that, since his boss is a know-it-all. Ludo gets a bit annoyed at this, since it means he has to meet the boss first. Putting that aside, Engine gets straight to the point and asks Ludo to tell him about his gloves, wanting to know how he got them. Ludo dims a little at the question and explains that his father gave them to him when he was a child, so they're his treasure and the only memory he has of him. Engine understands right away, mentioning that even though they're worn out and old, he can tell Ludo still takes great care of them. It's good to take care of what you value for a long time, even though most people can't manage something as basic as that. In his opinion, those are good gloves with a soul inside, so he hopes Ludo will always take care of them like that. Ludo is surprised by his words, and at that moment he remembers the exact time Leguto gave him his gloves, which makes him a bit emotional. Suddenly, Engine's bracelet makes a sound, so he gets up and tells Ludo that he's running late. And that's where the lesson about Terra ends. Before he can leave, Ludo stops him and thanks him for everything he's done, apologizing for not having said it sooner. Engine smiles and tosses him a bag of coins, saying that's all the money he has for now, so he should spend it wisely. Ludo is surprised that he's even giving him money and asks if he's really okay with it. Engine replies that it's not a problem at all, since that money is what he got when he sold his clothes, and that's how he paid for his treatment and his food. When Ludo hears this, all his calm vanishes and without hesitation he yells that he's going to beat him up. although Engine clarifies that, in any case, he can't wear sphere clothes in Terra anyway. But Ludo is still quite angry after Engine leaves, and that's when he sees a cat running off with his bag of money. Quickly, Ludo chases the cat down a dark alley and lunges to catch it, but fails in the attempt. Even so, Ludo gets up to keep running, and along the way grabs a cane, not realizing that someone was holding it. With this cane, he manages to catch the cat and after getting a few scratches, recovers his bag of money. Seconds later, we see that the person from before walks up to him, commenting that what Ludo is holding belongs to them, so he should give it back. Ludo is very confused since he thinks they're talking about the money, which clearly belongs to him. In response, the man clarifies that he's talking about the cane in his hand, you idiot. But Ludo doesn't understand what the big deal is since it's just a branch. Before he can react, the guy appears behind him and pushes him, taking the cane in the process. With the cane in his hands, the man decides to smell the wood, which makes Ludo wonder what's wrong with him. Damn druggy. However, he then realizes that his uniform bears the same emblem as Engine, which means he belongs to the cleaners. Suddenly, the guy's cane starts to glow, and after doing some maneuvers, he tells her that she can't steal his treasure and get away with it as if nothing happened. When his cane transforms, Ludo confirms that he's facing a cleaner, and the guy warns him that he's going to teach him a lesson and let him witness his lovely assist staff. Without hesitation, he hits him in the face with his cane, saying that if he's willing to steal other people's treasures, then he should be prepared to get hurt. Ludo is deeply shocked as he barely managed to dodge that blow, but he's even more surprised to hear that the guy knows his name. The guy confirms that he's one of the cleaners, mentioning that Engine told him a bit about Ludo. That's when he introduces himself as Sanka Nijiku, a member of the Hakuta cleaners. Engine asked him to be his instructor, but he didn't expect that he'd start by teaching him something as basic as the fact that stealing from someone could get you beaten up. Ludo quickly clarifies that he took the staff to catch the cat that stole his money. Without listening to what he says, Sanka tells him to let his parents know they should have raised him better. This comment makes Ludo lose his temper, since this guy doesn't know anything about him to be insulting Leguto. Anger makes his eyes glow in the dark, but that's when Ludo has another memory of his father. Leguto once told him that if he wants others to listen to him, he shouldn't be proud, because first he has to try to calm down and put himself in the other person's shoes in order to understand their feelings. Remembering that helps Ludo return to normal, feeling calmer as he understands that Sanka got angry because he thought Ludo had stolen something very valuable to him. If someone tried to take his gloves away, he would get angry too, so he can understand. With this in mind, Ludo clarifies in a calmer manner that he didn't intend to steal his staff, since he didn't know it was so valuable to him, and he apologizes for it. Upon hearing this, the glow from Sanka's staff disappears and he calms down, realizing that Ludo had no intention of stealing it. Sanka also apologizes, explaining that he lost his temper because it's his treasure, but he didn't mean to scare him. Ludo falls silent, clearly shocked, since this is the first time he's made peace with someone, and Leguto's advice actually worked. Sanka helps him up, treating him like a friend, and asks what his vital instrument is. Ludo replies that his vital instrument is his gloves, but he's still not quite sure what his ability is. Sanka compliments his gloves, saying they look great, while Ludo can't help but notice how different he feels now that he's calm. That's when he realizes the difference is the smile on his face, and he remembers that Leguto used to tell him not to look so unfriendly. He finds it surprising that someone can change so much just by smiling, but he's not sure if he can do it himself. Sanka keeps talking about his cane, but Ludo isn't listening, wondering if he'll be able to smile, since he practiced a lot when he lived above. Sanka asks him why he decided to join the cleaners, and Ludo replies that he'll only help them until he achieves his goal, though he says this with a terrifying expression and a very forced smile. Seeing such a horrible expression, Sanka suddenly gets upset, exclaiming that it's a really ugly face, which makes him think he's being mocked. Ludo gets scared and says he doesn't understand why Sanka is angry since that's his best smile, but Sanka clarifies that you can't call such a disgusting expression a smile. That comment makes Ludo start to wonder what he did wrong, so he decides to change a few things and tries to smile again. Despite his efforts, his expression is still quite creepy, so Sanka gets angry and asks if he's insane. After all, he was very kind, but now he's getting cocky and mocking him with that big face. Now Ludo also gets angry since he can't believe someone would treat badly a person who's smiling at them. Sanka replies that Ludo probably let it go to his head when Engine saw talent in him, but they risk their lives every day with the trash beasts and other things. Therefore he thinks it's awful that Ludo said he'd only help them until he achieves his goal, and it must be a really trivial goal if he said it with that clown face. Once again, Ludo loses his composure, as he suddenly remembers Leguto's final moments, when he asked Ludo to change this world before dying. Ludo looks at Sanka with a grim expression and clarifies that his goal is not trivial since he is also very serious about it, so Sanka can't make fun of him. Sanka confirms his suspicions with that and comments that ever since he first saw Ludo, he knew they wouldn't make a good team. Suddenly his staff starts glowing again, signaling the start of the fight, so Ludo grabs an iron pipe from the trash and activates the power of his gloves, saying he had the same impression. Sanka is surprised to see that his power extends to the object in his hands, since his vital instrument is supposed to be his gloves. That's when he realizes that Ludo's ability is to turn the objects he touches into vital instruments. Ludo's eyes start to shine, but Sanka suddenly laughs and tells him that's cheating, though now he understands why Engine called him a diamond in the rough. Even so, he wants him to remember well that a mere prodigy can't fight at the level of a regular super type like him. Sanka suddenly raises both his hands, and Ludo immediately notices that he doesn't have the staff. Before he knows it, the staff falls from the sky at high speed, destroying the ground at his feet. Ludo puts some distance between them, not understanding how he did that, but Sanka doesn't give him time to think and keeps attacking. As they fight, he tells him that he reacts too slowly, so the only good thing he has is his vital instrument. Ludo gets angry and tries to attack him, but Sanka slams him to the ground with just one blow from his staff, saying that his attacks are ridiculous and that even if he has power, he's still trash. At that moment, he notices a stain on his face and smelling it, realizes that it's excrement. This upsets him greatly, and he quickly realizes that Ludo has been attacking him with a dirty plunger. Ludo hadn't even realized this, but he gets up to keep fighting and in the process splashes more excrement. Completely mortified, Sanka dodges all the blows and without hesitation starts to run away. Ludo doesn't understand what's going on since suddenly he looks very scared, but that's fine by him. Ludo follows him everywhere and Sanka tries to call a truce since he doesn't think it's fair that he's using that thing as a weapon. After running for a while, Sanka trips over the same cat from before, so Ludo leaps into the air to attack him, splashing his clothes and face, making him let out a blood-curdling scream. Engine arrives at the scene shortly after, saying it's good that they're already buddies, though he's surprised to see the state Sanka is in. After he finds out what happened, he can't stop laughing along the way, saying he's never heard anything like it. Sanka remains silent, completely mortified, since he had never been so humiliated before. And on the other hand, Ludo is still processing the fact that he was fighting with excrement. When he finally stops laughing, Engine tells Ludo that Sanka is one of the most skilled givers when it comes to handling vital instruments, so he should learn from him. Putting that aside, he asks the girl in the back of the vehicle when she arrived. She introduces herself as Rillo. She looks at Ludo and replies that she was simply curious and without thinking starts playing with her hair. Ludo is left paralyzed, not knowing how to react, and wonders if it's normal for women in Terra to play with their hair. Without wasting any more time, Engine starts driving, announcing that they're going home, the cleaner's headquarters. And after a long journey through abandoned city areas filled with trash, the vehicle passes through a tunnel and finally comes to a stop. Everyone gets out of the car, and Engin welcomes Ludo to the cleaner's headquarters. Upon entering, the others say goodbye to Ludo and head off elsewhere. But Engin stays with her to introduce her to Semio, the receptionist. She explains to her that whenever she enters here, she always has to see him. Before she can explain what her ability is, Chemio suddenly uses a fork at lightning speed to kill some flies that were swarming around Ludo. Both are left speechless, and that's when Semio smiles and introduces herself to Ludo, mentioning that Engine told her about him, even where he comes from. Even so, she wants to see his potential in person, so she proceeds to use her glasses for that. Engine clarifies that those glasses are Chemio's vital instrument, and allow her to increase her visual acuity and see people's essence. Ludo is somewhat surprised, since he didn't know that vital instruments could also be used that way. After concentrating for a bit, Semio's glasses begin to glow, causing her eyes to light up. However, when she tries to see Ludo's essence, the glow immediately fades and Chemio is left somewhat puzzled. And Jin asks her what she saw, so Semio recovers a bit and explains that Ludo's physical ability is extremely high, so there's no need to train him from scratch. His harmony with his vital instrument is remarkable, but even so, the way he uses it is still not stable. Therefore, he needs training so that he can use it naturally. Engine asks if that's all, but Semio clarifies that there's something else, and with a serious expression, comments that Ludo has excrement on his neck. Ludo is surprised to hear that, while Engin starts laughing, saying that's why he was attracting flies. He thanks Chemio for the information and tells her that for now, he'll go introduce him to the boss. Despite the laughter, Engin takes a moment to look at Chemio before leaving, knowing deep down that this wasn't everything she managed to see in Ludo. As they walk through the halls of headquarters, Engin explains to Ludo that between fighters, sentinels, and followers, there are about 100 people in this place. Depending on where the cleaning is done, some might be at other locations, so it's rare for everyone to gather here. With that in mind, Engin decides to introduce him to the others, assuming there will be few cleaners around at this time. However, when he opens the door, he finds a bunch of people who don't look very friendly. Seeing this, Engin doesn't say a word and simply closes the door again, saying that there are too many people, so it's better to leave it for later. Without wasting any more time, he takes him to the boss's office, so Ludo tries to go in to ask directly how he can get upstairs. Engin stops him, knowing what he's planning to do, and reminds him that information is valuable everywhere, so no one will tell him that easily. He has to explain himself that he'll work at the Central in exchange for that information. On top of that, Engin reminds him not to ask the boss about his vital instrument, since not even they know what it is, and he hasn't told them what his ability is either. Even so, the cleaners follow the boss not just because he has great power, but also because he is very loyal. Understanding all this, Ludo prepares himself and decides to open the office door, but is surprised to find it empty. Engin is also confused, and that's when Semyo appears behind them, saying he forgot to mention that the boss is on a business trip and won't be back for a while. Ludo is left very bewildered upon hearing this, but Engin apologizes with a smile, saying that it seems he still won't be able to see the boss. Semyo makes it clear that he doesn't know when the boss will return, and Engin complains that he always does things on a whim despite being in charge, so something tells him it will be quite a while before he comes back. Ludo doesn't seem happy about it at all, but then Rio appears and suggests that he observe the others' work in the meantime. In any case, only the boss can officially make him a member of the cleaners, so they can let him accompany them on the job as an apprentice. Rio suddenly gets very close to Ludo and clarifies that she also wants to know more about him, which leaves him speechless. Accepting this, Semyo proceeds to explain the request to them, mentioning that people living near the contaminated area say that trash beasts are approaching the barricade and want them cleaned out just in case. Ludo gets a bit confused when he hears about the contaminated area, since the whole place is a dump, and Kemio scolds Engin for not having taught him that. Engin clarifies that he only explained it in broad terms as a garbage dump, but Semyo doesn't seem satisfied, so she tells Ludo that she'll explain it instead of that crooked-headed guy. She then tells him that Terra is divided into the safe zone, where humans can live peacefully, and the contaminated zone, where the trash beasts dwell. The place where he landed upon arrival is the most dangerous part of the contaminated zone and is called the Forbidden Zone. So far, 6 forbidden zones have been identified, and if a civilian enters one, they could die almost immediately. Not only that, they're full of trash beasts that not even a giver could defeat, so it's a miracle that Engin was there to save him. Taking this into account, Kemio asks Engin why he was in that forbidden zone, but Engin tells him it doesn't matter, and to just take a walk around. Not fully understanding, Chimio lets it go and explains that you have to wear a mask when entering contaminated zones. As he hands an oxygen mask to Ludo, he clarifies that breathing the harmful particles in those zones could cause a terrible illness. Without the mask, you could even die in just 15 minutes in the Forbidden Zone. Ludo is surprised to hear that, so she puts on the mask he gave her and heads out with Rio's group toward the barricade they were told about. She explains that today's task is easy, but she needs to pay attention to the work they'll be doing. Ludo gets a little nervous when Rio winks at him, and when he looks beyond the barricade, he notices it's full of trash, which makes him wonder how long he was breathing there. As he follows Rio's group, he thinks that this is what he imagined the abyss would be like when he was in the sphere, but it never occurred to him that people would actually live here, and he wonders if maybe those living above don't know about it either. Even so, now that he calmly observes the contaminated area, it seems to him that there are a ton of treasures, so he wants to take them all home to repair them. Putting his excitement aside, Ludo approaches Rio to ask who the people accompanying them are. Rio replies that they are also cleaners and explains that they are followers, who, even though they don't have powers, are a crucial support for the cleaners. One of them comes over to greet Ludo, but when he shakes his hand, he squeezes it so hard that he almost ends up bending it. Ludo falls to the ground in shock, and Rio laughs as she explains that he is Gris, who has such a tremendous grip strength that he can bend the shells of trash beasts. Even while still on the ground, Ludo looks at him in terror, thinking that he doesn't know if he'll ever get used to this, but he knows he has to do it right, even if it's an easy mission and he's only supposed to observe. Another member of the group informs Rio that there are trash beasts in sight, so everyone gets ready. From the shadows, the trash beasts begin to emerge, and Ludo gets anxious when he sees how many there are, since no one told him it would be such a large pack. Rio reassures him that everything will be fine, since beasts of that species are slow and weak. Many of the beasts start headbutting the barricade, so Rio reinforces his point by showing that they can't even do anything to them, and that's why they're the best ones to observe and learn from. Ludo calms down a bit when he realizes that they really are calmer than the first beasts he saw. This makes him wonder if there are differences between individuals, since they seem like animals. Suddenly, a larger beast charges at the barricade, causing a commotion, so Ludo gets upset and exclaims that there's nothing calm about them. He almost starts saying a prayer. Rio keeps saying that everything is fine. Even as the beasts start breaking through the barricade to get in, Ludo shouts that nothing is fine and insists that they need to call for reinforcements. At that point, Rio explains to him that this larger beast is just a slightly improved version of the smaller ones. It's a bit stronger, but it's perfect for training a rookie like him. And since these types have shown up, this must be the whole pack, and if they clear them all out at once, they'll be able to go home soon, so they need to hurry up so they can have their welcome party. Rio asks him what his favorite food is, but Ludo gets a bit confused and reminds her that he hasn't officially joined the cleaners yet. She then clarifies that it will be his welcome party to Terra, but Ludo still doesn't understand how she can be so calm in such a deadly job. At that point, Rio tells him that to be a cleaner, or rather, to live in Terra, it's crucial to have strength of heart and never lose your composure, or just be outright crazy. Ludo is surprised, realizing that Enshin never lost his composure, and that's exactly what he's lacking, so he decides to stay calm. Right at that moment, the barricade is smashed to pieces by a huge beast, and even Rio is surprised. With his eyes wide open, Ludo's mask falls off, but he keeps telling himself that it's fine. However, when he looks to Rio for reassurance, she tells him that things have gotten ugly, since she's never seen such a huge beast before, and it's definitely not one to just watch. Ludo is paralyzed by this, but Rio pulls a pair of scissors from her case and tells him that the stronger the enemy, the more thrilling the victory. Not knowing what to do, Ludo stares at Rio's scissors, which begin to glow green. She tells him that before taking care of the big beast, it's better to start with the small ones. She then throws the scissors into the sky, and they instantly grow larger, transforming into a deadly weapon. With this, Rio manages to take down a bunch of beasts in less than a minute, leaving Ludo completely stunned. He wonders what just happened, noticing that apparently Rio spun the scissors with her feet. Grease explains to him that Rio's vital instrument is those scissors, and they're called the Ripper. Normally they're used with the hand, but Rio uses her feet when she turns them into a weapon, even if it's considered bad manners. Ludo realizes that everyone uses things in their own way, but Grease interrupts his thoughts and tells him not to get distracted. Even though he's still an apprentice, he could die too. Right behind him, a beast tries to charge at him, but Grease stops it with his bare hands, even managing to crush its skull with just his grip strength. After that, he throws the beast directly at Rio, who cuts it in half with her scissors, saying they can send her more of those. The other cleaners follow her orders, hitting the beast to send them over afterward. Ludo watches them, very impressed, because even though they don't have the power to defeat the beasts, they manage to neutralize them for a moment, so the giver can finish them off. In a short time, he understands that this is how the cleaners fight, and it makes him remember his own words when he said he would only help them until he achieved his goal. While he's reflecting on that, Rio finishes off all the smaller beasts so she can finally focus on the biggest one. Seeing that the battle with the big one has started, Grease tells the others that they need to neutralize the smaller ones so they don't become a threat. Ludo watches as everyone moves into action, but one of the defeated beasts suddenly moves and causes one of the cleaners to fall to the ground. The beast suddenly jumps on top of him without giving him time to react, but at that moment, Ludo steps in to stop it with a pipe he found nearby. With determination, Ludo exclaims that he will join the cleaners to gather information and knows that being a burden is of no help. Therefore, he also plans to do his part while he's with them and will show them what he's capable of. At that moment, his vital tool activates through his gloves, empowering the pipe in his hands. Suddenly, the simple rusty pipe he was holding transforms into a mass of spiked branches, and Ludo is confused to see it take on that shape. At that moment, Ludo grows worried as he questions how he was using his power. The beast's eyes intimidate him, but just as the branches break apart, Rio arrives to land a solid blow on the beast, saying that he admires him for saving someone who was unconscious. Grease catches up to them shortly after and apologizes, saying that they let their guard down. After thanking them, he asks Rio if she was able to take down the Titan, and she replies that she split it in two, but it wasn't enough. This is because it doesn't disappear even after being cut several times with her weapon. As they talk, they can see how the beast slowly starts to rejoin after being cut in two, which shouldn't happen. Their weak points are almost the same as those of a living being, so they are supposed to die when they are cut in two with a vital instrument. Despite this, Rio says it doesn't matter, since it's still a trash beast, so he'll keep cutting it until it stops moving. Grease tells him that in that case, they'll document it and report it as a new species, and they'll warn the nearby villages just in case. The group of followers leaves and Rio goes back to fighting the Titan, leaving Ludo a bit lost and not knowing what to do. Rio starts cutting the beast with his scissors, skillfully handling them with his feet. After cutting all the tentacles coming out of the beast's head, Rio notices a bright spot on its skull, so he assumes it's a special part. The beast becomes very agitated and sends her flying, causing its tentacles to grow back again. After this, its eyes start to glow and its behavior becomes much more hostile. Rio clings to the beast, which starts pounding the ground, so Grease tries to warn Ludo that it will crush him. Suddenly, the beast's tentacles travel at full speed underground, heading straight for Ludo. Before he can react, the ground beneath his feet collapses, making him fall. At that moment, Ludo starts to think, since his goal was supposed to be to beat up Leguto's killer and the people above, but he can't even use his power properly, and ended up just getting in the way. This makes him question whether he's really good for anything. But before he sinks into that darkness, someone grabs his hand. Grease holds him tightly and helps him get back to the surface, then lifts him onto his shoulders, running at full speed with him. As they leave the place, Grease comments that he doesn't know why Ludo froze up, but if he has a goal, he should run away before he can't achieve it and watch how they work. Ludo then turns his gaze to Rio, who uses his scissors to attack the glowing spot on the beast's head, assuming it's its weakness. When she does this, the beast turns into a pile of ashes, so Grease and Ludo run over to see if Rio is okay. She shows them a rusty box cutter and comments that the Titan died when she pierced it, so apparently that was its power source. Grease is very surprised when he sees it up close, realizing that this object is a vital instrument. In another scene, we see that one of the men who tried to take Ludo to sell him wakes up in a stranger's hideout. Not understanding anything, he comments that the only thing he remembers is that Cesarino beat him up. But at that moment, the person in the hideout asks him where this Cesarino he's talking about is. Shortly after what happened, we see Zanka walking sleepily through the halls of the headquarters, when suddenly she hears a commotion in the distance. When she goes to investigate what it's about, also getting ready in case she needs to take someone down, she finds a large number of cleaners celebrating with food, games, and drinks. So Zanka approaches Rio to ask her what's going on, and Rio explains that they're celebrating Ludo's welcome party to Terra. Although upon hearing that, Zanka comments that surely everyone who attended just wants to drink for free. Rio clarifies that there's nothing wrong with the celebration also serving as a chance for everyone to have fun, so she doesn't see a problem with it. After looking around, Zanka notices Ludo resting his head on a lonely table and mentions that apparently the guest of honor doesn't look very cheerful. Rio explains to him that it's because he couldn't properly use his vital instrument the day before, so he's been like that ever since. Putting that aside, Zanka brings up yesterday's request, saying he heard that a very strange trash beast appeared. In response, Rio tells him that unlike normal trash beasts, its core wasn't made of anima, but of an object. An object with power is a vital instrument, which means that a trash beast was born with that driving source. Rio comments that this left them very confused and he really doesn't know what to do. Despite his apparent seriousness, Rio's expression shifts to a carefree smile, as he says that it's better to let those higher up worry about the mysteries. Zanka doesn't seem at all impressed by such a sudden change in attitude, since she knows that Rio doesn't change no matter what happens. She tells him that when the meeting is over, Enshin and Semyu will join them, which surprises them a lot. On the other hand, Ludo remains at the table looking at his gloves with discouragement, but at that moment he approaches Gris to properly introduce himself and mentions that he worked very hard yesterday. Ludo also introduces himself and clarifies that he didn't do anything, but Gris reminds him that he protected his companion from one of the trash beasts. The person he saved is a boy named Follow, a young follower who wears glasses. That description makes Ludo remember what happened the day before with his ability, and that doesn't make him feel any better. Ludo tells him that he couldn't use his power and after his attempt, he and Rio had to save them. It's been like that ever since he was up above, where he was always blinded by rage and just flailed around so Leguto would end up fixing everything for him. Clearly frustrated, Ludo comments that even though he needs to get back up as soon as possible, he hasn't changed since someone always ends up saving him and he can't live up to his own expectations. Gris suddenly interrupts him to thank him, something Ludo wasn't expecting at all. Seeing his confusion, Gris explains that when someone sees the followers, they usually think they're weak, powerless types and look down on them, thinking they're just dead weight for the cleaners. There are even some among the cleaners who thought that at first, but something tells him that's not the case with Ludo, so he's grateful. Ludo is surprised and doesn't know what to say, so Gris tells him that Follow joined the cleaners to get rid of the trash beasts, but those who lack power can't eliminate them, which is why he's taking care of an important object to become a giver. Even so, he says he'll continue being a follower, even when he becomes a giver, so he can teach a lesson to those who underestimated him. Taking this into account, Gris asks Ludo to set aside all that about expectations and being strong and asks him what it is that he wanted to do. Ludo doesn't know what he means, so Gris clarifies that there must have been something he wanted to do before arriving at Terra and before that happened to him. He should try to remember it in order to go back to the beginning, because that way he'll immediately know what he needs to do to achieve it. Gris gives Ludo a pat on the head and encourages him to trust himself and to keep going with his life even though he has fallen into Terra. Ludo is surprised and even moved by that gesture and by Gris's words, but before he can fully react, Enshin suddenly appears at his side, leaning tiredly on his shoulder. He asks him why he hasn't eaten anything, and Rio does the same, saying that he has to eat since they threw this whole party because of him. Gris then stands up and in a friendly way, invites Ludo to go eat with the others until they're stuffed. Ludo remains silent for a moment, clearly surprised, but seeing the warm atmosphere waiting for him, he decides to get up from the table to join them. While they eat, music starts to play. Suddenly, several people in the place get excited when they see a certain guy shaking some cans of paint. Enshin approaches Ludo and asks him to watch closely, because that guy's name is Gob, and he's someone who keeps doing what he wants without straying from his path. Gob starts spray painting graffiti on the walls and keeps going even though some people complain about the smell of the spray paint. Enshin sits down to watch what he's drawing and comments that lately he's been coming very often. Gob replies that there are a lot of graffiti pieces he wants to paint, and his eyes shine as he finishes the work he's doing on the wall, so Ludo also watches him closely. In another scene, we see the man from before again after a long torture session to extract information from Ludo. His body is in terrible condition, so he begs for the suffering to stop, saying he's already talked too much and told them everything he knew. The man who has been torturing him decides to end his life in a single move, satisfied to know that the Sferino he spoke of has grey hair with dark tips and dark circles under his eyes. It's a Sferino with giver powers, so he hopes he brought him a good gift. Back at headquarters, Semyu receives a call and soon after informs the cleaners that a new job request has come in. Before finding out what it's about, Zanka is only worried because Ludo is there, since even though he knows Ludo will be his instructor, that will only happen once he officially joins the cleaners. Semyu replies that the reason he called him is explained in the contents of the request. There it explains that a trash beast attacked a merchant who was crossing the contaminated zone and stole an important cargo from him. Therefore, this person is requesting that they clean up and recover that cargo, which turns out to be someone alive who fell from the sphere. This information surprises everyone, and Semyu clarifies that it's not normal for living spherans to appear one after another. That's why it occurred to him that Ludo might be interested, since he could find a clue to get back up there. Gris acknowledges that Ludo must have a lot on his mind, so he reminds him that it's up to him to decide whether he'll go or not. Ludo thinks about it for a moment, since he knows he can't use his power well and might once again be a burden to whoever has to defend him or whoever he has to defend. But despite that, this is a chance to find some clue to get back up, so he decides that he will go. Semyu then comments that the plan was for Enshin to go with them, but he can't because of another job, although he said everything will be fine because Zanka is going with them. Upon hearing that, Zanka is very surprised and heads off to do the job more motivated than ever. Ludo and the followers go after him, and as they walk, Ludo asks Gris why he isn't armed. He replies that he carries a knife for self-defense, but he always fights. They also call him Olympia, since that's what he's best at. Then Follow comments that actually, Gris carries a protective amulet and always prays before a job so that everyone can return safely. Gris scolds him for telling that, but Follow just laughs, and Ludo is surprised by how good of a person he is. Gris shows him the amulet and clarifies that it's just a trinket he bought at a stall somewhere, but praying doesn't cost anything, so he doesn't mind. Suddenly, a woman appears among them stealthily and informs them that she is the merchant who requested them, so she will guide them to the trash beast. Ludo quickly asks her about the Sferino she was transporting, wanting to know what he was like and if he told her anything. She replies that she found him by chance while transporting goods and saved him, but since he was unconscious, she couldn't talk to him. Ludo looks at her suspiciously and asks if she plans to do business with him, but the woman assures him that she doesn't, as she is genuinely concerned. With this settled, the group follows her through the area, but Sanka knows that the trash beasts always attack when they see a human, so it's unlikely that Sferino is still alive. He finds it very strange that a beast would kidnap a person, but lately there have been many creepy changes, referring to Ludo, so he no longer knows what to believe. When they reach a certain area, the woman points to an abandoned building and explains that the beast fled inside. The group gets ready to investigate the building, and Sanka asks everyone to stay alert. As soon as they enter the place, they notice a person, and the woman suddenly pushes them to hurry up. As they get closer, Ludo realizes that the person they saw isn't a human, but just a simple doll. The woman tells them to hurry and suddenly steps aside as the ground beneath their feet turns to mud, making them fall into a trap. At the bottom, Grizz asks where the sphere creature she mentioned is, and the woman replies that it's right there, pointing at Ludo. After that, she turns into mud, and Sanka quickly understands the situation upon seeing purple lamps in the darkness, since he knows they've fallen into a trap set by the riders. Grizz then explains to Ludo that they're dealing with a gang of bandits who were originally just a group of thieves, but a few years ago their modus operandi became much more sinister. It's said that they're experimenting with strange things, and moreover, all the riders are Guyvers. Immediately, Grizz orders the other followers to secure an escape route and asks Follow to stay with him to protect Ludo. Sanka understands that it's up to him to handle the dirty work, so he tells them to leave right away. Ludo hesitates a bit but then leaves with Grizz and Follow, although he makes it clear to them that he could fight too. Grizz explains to him that the riders are very different from the people who tried to take him before and that he doesn't know what powers they might have, so it's best to get away. While they escape, Sanka faces the two riders and comments that he knew it was only a matter of time before they tracked him down. It's true that Ludo could be worth a lot and they could live the high life if they managed to sell him. At that moment, the woman smiles and clarifies that they don't want the boy to sell him, but rather they want to know more about the sphere, so it would be best if a Spherian told them many things in person, for example, how he managed to cross the border alive. Sanka thinks about it for a moment, but then replies that he doesn't care about the sphere, and in short, the request was a trap to lure Ludo, and there is no trash beast. The woman confirms that obviously there is no beast, but at that moment she uses her power and clarifies that there are many mud dolls, enough for each one. Sanka notices that all the dolls have the shape of the woman who brought them there, and that the ground collapsing beneath their feet was all the work of her ability. Despite that, he uses his staff to destroy several of those dolls and assures that he can take care of those soft things without any problem. The woman asks him to be careful, since among the dolls there is one with a hidden prize for him. Sanka blocks several of the dolls' attacks, taking them down one by one. However, one of the dolls melts to reveal that it is actually the woman's rider companion, and he lands a direct hit on Sanka, slamming him against the wall. This man tells him that it was a big mistake on his part to let his guard down and forget about him. After that, he hides again, and the woman explains that she can't blame him since cleaners only fight against trash beasts, so they're not used to fighting people. The dolls start moving again, so Sanka gets up to fight once more, destroying several of them. Even so, the rider manages to catch him off guard again and again, hitting and kicking him from behind. When he falls again, the woman comments that she forgot to mention one little thing. She had already turned some parts of the floor into mud. Sanka realizes this when he tries to get up and slips, and she warns him that he'll get stuck if he moves too much. He's the only one in his group who seems capable of fighting, so if they take him out, they'll win, and then go after the Sferino. Sanka suddenly interrupts her and stands up, saying that he's had enough of her dirty tricks and pathetic ways, but he's analyzed them and now knows how they operate. He knows that the woman uses the shovel to manipulate the mud, and the man uses a vital instrument to strike. Or at least that's what he thought, but then he realized they were just regular punches. He noticed for a moment that he's wearing snow boots and crouched down to do something before the woman summoned the dolls. He heard somewhere that his boots are made for walking on unstable ground, so they chose him as that woman's partner because he doesn't sink into the mud. Sanka smiles and tells them they're made for each other, but he's already seen and learned the way they fight together. This clearly catches the riders off guard, but the woman warns him that making fun of them won't change anything, and on the contrary, it'll only make things worse for him. Then Sanka tells her that maybe he has less experience than they do fighting people, but he knows his own vital instrument much better, and that's something they shouldn't underestimate. He remembers perfectly its weight, smell, and texture, and he maintains it every day while asking it how it is, in addition to using it daily. That's why he knows how to wield it so it hits exactly where he wants and sends them flying, and that's something, as he already said, he knows very well. After saying all that, Sanka exclaims that he's talked enough, so he raises his staff to show them what he can do. All the mud dolls run toward him, but when Sanka drives his staff into the ground, he creates waves of vibration that allow him to know exactly which of the dolls the rider is hiding in. In less than a second, he rushes toward the doll and delivers 2 consecutive blows, knocking out both riders before they can react. With the woman out of the way, all the mud dolls collapse. But just when Sanka thinks he's finished, the man from before appears behind him, catching him by surprise.